And I'd like to bring greetings from the Stop the War Coalition. If you look at what is happening in Gaza today, the United Nations had a school yesterday which was shelled by the Israelis, and 2 children died and their mother lost her legs. Even the United Nations representative had to say after that shelling that this was a war crime carried out by Israel. And over the next weeks and months, we will find more and more war crimes carried out by Israel against the Palestinians. And the question that I'd like to ask today is, why is this allowed to happen? Why does this barbarism happen in a world where supposedly these war crimes are illegal? When, as one of the previous speakers has said, after the Second World War, collective punishment was made illegal. And yet it's happened to the people of Gaza. And I'll tell you why it is allowed to happen. Because every Western government has backed Israel against the Palestinians, and they are still doing it. If you look, this weekend is the weekend where we can say goodbye to George Bush. As well, because that man has brought more war and destruction to the world than any other American president in living memory. And we still have these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and the threat to Iran. But it's also about our own government. What a shameful government this is that went to war in Afghanistan and Iraq. David Miliband, our Foreign Secretary, got up in Parliament on Monday and he said Israel is a beacon of democracy in the Middle East. This was the same day that Israel banned the Israeli Arab parties from standing in the election next month. That's how democratic it is in Israel. And by the way, these Israeli Arabs are demonstrating every day in support of the Palestinians. They are Palestinians. But nobody sees that on the BBC. The BBC says we're reporting from the borders of Palestine. When they go to Zimbabwe and stand on the border, they say it's because Mugabe won't let them in. They don't mention they don't go into Gaza because the Israelis won't let them in. These are the kind of double standards that are going on. But it isn't just the Western governments. Look at what Egypt is doing, the rotten dictatorship of Hosni Mubarak. People are demonstrating there every day in a dictatorship. Very, very difficult for them to demonstrate, but they are doing it. Look at the people of Saudi Arabia up against that corrupt monarchy. Look at the people of Jordan up against the corrupt monarchy. And there is a division in the world between the rich and the powerful who back up Israel and the vast mass of working people who support the Palestinians who don't want this to happen. And today we heard that Israel has declared a ceasefire. Are we supposed to thank them for the fact that after 3 weeks, for the first time in 3 weeks, they stopped bombing women and children every single night? This ceasefire is not a genuine ceasefire, because what it is, they bombed Gaza for 3 weeks. Now they're turning around before Obama has his inauguration next week, and they're saying we'll stop bombing as long as America and Britain help to disarm Hamas and help to disarm the Palestinians. Well, I'll tell you my position. Self-defense is no offense. That Hamas have the right to defend themselves. And if we're going to start disarming people, let's stop selling arms to the Israelis. Let's stop subsidizing them, as the Americans are doing. And let's look at what the real situation here is. The real situation is that the Palestinians, their struggle didn't start last month or last year. It didn't even start in 1948. It started when the British, after the First World War, carved up the region along with the other imperialist powers for their own benefit. You want democracy in the Middle East? Get the British out, get the other imperialist powers out, down with the dictators and monarchies, and let the people of the region have real democracy, which would mean an end to all these regimes which are propped up by the Americans. When we say victory to the Palestinians, this is a struggle that is in all of our hearts and all of our minds every day. And we have to fight here in Britain about what is going on in the Middle East. They are upset that there is such a mass movement in Britain. This is the biggest movement in Britain since we had the Iraq War in 2003. And we have to make sure this time we learn the lessons of that war and that we don't have any more wars. We have justice for the Palestinians and we end the occupation. So I'm going to ask you to do two things. One is, will you please keep campaigning? Join Stop the War. You can join the Stop the War coalition, help us to grow around the country. We have a demonstration in London next week, which you're very welcome to come to. It starts at the BBC, and we all know what we think about the BBC. And it goes to Downing Street, and we all know what we think about Gordon Brown as well. So we're going to do that. But there's one other thing I'd like you to do. We are calling this Thursday, we want a day of action for students and school students and people in FE colleges. And we want you to go out and strike, or to occupy your college, or do anything you can on Thursday to bring the issue of Gaza to everybody's attention. So let's make that a mass day of action. And if you're not a student, if you're not at school, you can do something as well. The trade union movement in this country supports Stop the War and supports the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. That's a very good thing, but it's about time we started putting our money where our mouth is. In Norway last week, all the trade unions are on the railways. They stopped their trains for 2 minutes and made a statement to all their passengers in support of the people of Gaza. Now the problem is in Norway the trains run on time. Of course in Britain if your train's 2 minutes late, probably nobody would notice. But what we